welcome to Conscious Business, episode number 2. Always a good time, but first things first. Welcome to country and acknowledgement to this land.
Yeah, so we're recording today on Boonwurrung country. We acknowledge the traditional landowners of this country and we pay our respects to all elders, past, present and emerging.
Thank you. This is my dear friend Sian. Sian is an amazing textile designer. Working on her craft is her most, she is pretty incredible. And we will talk all things passion and love and purpose. But today we come together with a mission to deliver a message about using kind of 3 philosophies, if you want to call them that, to live life by, to be peaceful, to have grounding, and to have stability. So I want to talk about emotional well-being philosophies together with my friend Sian, because I think your knowledge, Sian, and the moments that we've shared with so many conversations about life and the ups and downs, the challenges, the ins and outs, it's been incredible. And I like sharing my knowledgeable friends with the world, and that's what conscious business is about. So first things first, the world is crazy.
She's intense out there.
She's intense. Bro, I'm like, are you going through something right now?
Yeah.
Especially the turning point that was like the beginning of the year, the trajectory of these last couple of months with the reshuffle of like all the world's governments, all of our, kind of the things that were stable are becoming so unstable from everything, from governance to economy to lifestyle to, basically purpose.
Yeah.
How we see purpose in life.
So we're coming up on a Pluto return, which is always a crazy shift time in the universe. Also, Saturn's been in Aquarius, which is always a little bit of a weird time for everybody.
Aquarius is really like deep and emotional.
And so Aquarius as well is the mutable air sign, so it's like the wind. So sort of when big planets are shifting into Aquarius, it sort of tosses everything up and we're all kind of left to the breeze a little bit like that, which can feel really transient for some people, really kind of rough, not knowing what's going on and where you're at.
It also means the possibility of finding a new direction. If you get waved around and around in these like different kind of dimensions and pivots of life, as destruction does, it destroys and then it reconforms.
And I think it's also, it all depends on how you look at it. If you look at it through the lens of being left to the breeze can land you in a completely new location and you get to start fresh and have a new landscape to work with. It's really exciting on the other hand,
I hope to bring about a change in our lives. I hope that there's a really tangible shift to the things that we desired and learnt about, and we actually land in our learnings and apply the wisdom. So today's conversation is to apply certain tools that we can use that will establish, a foundation of well-being, consistently grounding you back, consistently bringing you back to your purpose, consistently bringing you into your highest potential. So I want to start with this one thing that I think even as a business owner or an artist or an entrepreneur or anything you're doing, comparison.
Yeah, I think that's such a natural thing that happens for all human beings. It's really hard to not compare, because I think another really innate thing in all human beings is desire, and seeing externally from yourself something that you feel great desire for can pretty quickly and easily lead you to comparison.
100%. And desire is always like of something else outside of ourselves. So even in the yoga text, it talks about desire being ultimately not healthy. And people say, oh, but I should be able to manifest and wish and want. Abso-freaking-lutely. but desire in the desire to have that thing to fulfill my happiness or to fulfill my worth, or my desire is to be like that person because when I'm like that person, then I'm going to be good enough. So the desire is set on the external to achieve the internal.
Yeah, and I think something that pretty clearly comes through when you are looking at another person's lifestyle and having desire for that person's lifestyle is, that kind of admiration for that person. When I'm like that person, then I will be more admirable, or I'll be more respectful because I feel admiration and respect for this person. But yeah, you can't be other people. They're busy being them and you're busy being you. And you can feel inspired by other people,
right,
and their plight and their journey and how much respect you have for them. But it should just give you drive to achieve your own version of that.
And I love what you said about like inspiration driven from aspiration of someone else doing what you'd love to do. I think these are embodiments of teachers. I think every time you try and compare and compete with others, it's really diminishing the potential of you actually seeing that as like a person or an entity to be inspired and mentored by, rather than compare the two and differentiate.
And one thing that I love to do as well is sort of take the opportunity to turn the mirror on myself, especially when I'm experiencing emotions and feelings of envy or jealousy, and kind of wanting to almost in a way take from someone else in order to fulfill myself, those kinds of feelings of saying, I want what they have for myself. I try and turn the mirror on myself and take the opportunity to think, what really is the root of this? And why do I not feel like I can have that in my own way? And I try and reframe those feelings, rather than being jealous or envious of that person, feeling excited for the possibility that can create for me when I have that fire in my belly of, I really want that for myself. Yeah.
And there's enough resources, enough potential, and enough possibility in the world.
There's a lot of
for
world
all
out there.
of us. There's a lot of world out there. And no one can be you, and no one can be me. And comparison is limiting my ability to see my fullest potential.
Yeah.
Because I'll never be you.
Exactly. And I think a very dangerous way of looking at it, which I have seen people looking at it, is that success is kind of like this pyramid. We've got all of these sort of average people at the bottom of the pyramid, and then you go up and up and up, and then you have the most successful person in this one spot at the top. And there's actually not only one spot. There's a lot of seats available for success. There's a lot of room, and we can stand side by side one another, rather than having to feel like we need to climb and stand on the shoulders of other people to feel fulfilled.
I think the whole point really is when you diminish your ability to self-soothe, self-love, self-worth,
and self-regulate.
And that internal dialogue is so important. It actually brings everything back to the main point of our conversation today, is anything external, validation-wise, approval-wise, or competition-wise, comparison-wise, is always diminishing your potential.
Yeah.
I found this really cool. Look, I'm across seeking knowledge from every modality, and I love to go into anything that teaches something useful for me. So I found this proverb, a biblical proverb, but I believe in everything. I believe everything is just a name, but the path or the impression of that is the same. And so it says, in this proverb, it says, the only true foundation for human security, stability, and happiness, that is a place within the spirit, where the universe, God, impacts a person's life from the inside out, rather than build and blind men searching for something in the dark. that we never seem to find.
Yeah, and I think the point there that I take from that is that when there's an emptiness within and you're not focusing on healing that emptiness, because emptiness is an open wound, you know, right? And as long as you leave it open and empty and wounded, there's nothing that's actually going to heal that and feel that comes externally from yourself. You need to work on inside out, you know, because if you're trying to feel whole with things that are outside of yourself, but you yourself inside are empty, that empty feeling's not going anywhere.
Absolutely. And it diminishes even more the more you search for it.
Yeah.
And that's what this proverb for me is explaining, that the human spirit is what we need to stay connected to. And I learned this thing about emotions and feelings the other day I loved, and it said that emotions are precursors of conditioning. So normally, emotionally, I'll get charged up if, say, we have an argument, but that's my conditioning: fight, flight, or fold. And basically, my conditioning is one of the three things. That's emotional conditioning. My feelings, when we have an argument, is not one of those responses. It's actually, my feeling will be authentic, true, sincere. It will not be, I want to fight you, or I want to flee, or I want to fold. My feelings will say I'm sad because I love you. And allowing yourself to be in your feelings, in your spirit, in your intuition is what navigates these parts, whether it's like imposter syndrome because you want to be like that person, whether it's competing with people. You won't compete with people if you're in your spirit, if you're in your true essence, because then I never see you as a threat.
Yeah. And I think another really useful thing that I learned pretty recently, actually, that helped me with all of this is thinking about my inner child, and also thinking about things as relationships. So the way I put those two things together is, I find that when I find myself in conflict with people that I love and care about, it usually comes down to the same root of things. And you know, I'm not really upset because you left something on the countertop, or I'm not really upset because you didn't call me, or you know, anything like that. Really, what I'm upset by, and this is different for everybody, is that inner child, that deep sort of unhealed wound. And for me personally, it's not feeling listened to. So I'll always feel protective over my inner child when my inner child is not feeling listened to. It always comes down to, why aren't you listening to me?
Absolutely. Always to do with conditioning.
Yes.
What your needs are.
Yeah. And so when the relationships part comes in, I like to think of everything as a relationship. I'm having a relationship with the universe. I'm having a relationship with you. I'm having a relationship with myself, and I'm having a relationship with that inner child. So it's actually not anybody else's job externally from you to, you know, of course we all still need to respect one another, but when your inner child is feeling that wound, it's my job to step in and have that relationship with my inner child, and step up and be the parent, I guess, in that scenario.
Yeah.
And sort of say, hey, I'm gonna listen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually find in my personal relationship dynamic, I've always struggled with the dynamic between needing that from my parents, because I'm like, but you're my parent, you know? And the more I search for that, again, giving the example of, the more I search for that validation, love from my dad, and I've never really gotten it, I'm always going to have that pain and suffering. So what you're saying about the inner child is always seeking that. I'm always going to be in pain because the wound is left open, because that person cannot physically, emotionally, spiritually give that, because that's their conditioning altogether. That's their childhood altogether. And then in the learning of that, I've filtered through, like, again, I'm externally trying to find that person, whether it's my dad or a person on the street that I expect love and respect from. It's not going to come and it may or may not, but I have to be the one, like the accountability is on me to deliver that. And that's where the journey really starts, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
And I love to spend time in meditation as well, even visualizing my inner child, myself as a child, and I'll get down on my knees, get down on her level, I'll look her in the eye and actually say out loud to her, I'm listening to you, I hear you. And those moments are really, really powerful when you make the conscious decision to step in and give yourself what you need. Because you can do that.
You can, I mean, everyone has that ability. I just think the conditioning, once again, of the world, always being external. As soon as you open your eyes, everything is validation from my phone, to who sees me in my day, to the engagements I have. That's going to fill my cup. And you notice, like, the days that you don't have anyone text you or call you or hit you up, you're like, am I loved? Does anybody care? You know, but I've unfolded that story through these examples that we're talking about, and now I'm like, the solitude, the wholeness, the completion, like even being single for so long, many years. Anyone watching? I'm kidding. I actually was like more removed from myself every time I was in a relationship before the fulfillment of myself from myself. So in the relationships I was disturbed, you know, I was always on eggshells, wanting that person to always be okay, you know, always wanting like stability and harmony, and I was doing it so that that scenario, that person could give me the stability I needed without rocking the boat. But the thing is, I need to just carry myself the way I needed, you know. If someone disturbed my peace, I need to announce it.
Yeah. And when it comes to romantic relationships as well, a really important thing that I learned too is that, you know, a lot of us go out into the world looking for someone that is going to be excited about how we make them feel, or looking for someone that is going to make us feel a certain way. But I think a healthier way to look at romantic relationships is the best person to be with is someone that's excited about you being you feeling yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be with someone who is actively looking to take from you emotionally. You want to look for someone who's going to hold you up.
Preach. I'm so triggered right now. I'm kidding.
No.
No, I had a date. Dare I say it? I had a date. If you're watching, cat's out of the bag. I had a date on Sunday. It was like the most uncomfortable energetically from the get-go, and again, feelings versus emotions, my emotional reaction to what they were saying, because they were very misogynistic, and a lot of people with their conditioning come with that, like me man, me prove,
Slay.
me show, me
I love that.
And I'm just sitting there, and there wasn't even one conversation about, hey Neha, like, how are you? How are you doing in your pursuit of your happiness? Not even the business, not even like the things I have, just how are you in your desire of life? How are you doing? Like, you know, cheering for you, wanting to be excited for. Yeah, that's lacking. Everyone loves to preach about themselves. Like,
yeah, like I'm with a wonderful partner right now, and one of my favorite dynamics that we have is, you know, I'll sort of like look in the mirror, for example, when I'm wearing like an outfit, and I'm like, look at me, and he'll look at me and be like, yeah, look at you.
Like your cheerleader.
Yes, of course. And same for me towards him, you know, like the most attractive thing is to watch someone that you see in a beautiful light, looking at themselves in a beautiful light, you know, because then you can like really be on the same page.
And you're already doing the whole, you know, movement from my external validation, even though I have a partner and I have an external person to validate me, but you're still standing looking at you, yourself.
Yeah.
And validating.
And I think it's also like, rather than him being external validation for me, he reinforces my validation of myself. That's the more important part for me, I think. Yeah.
I love that so much. So I really do feel the notion of self fulfillment prophecies, is a really important one for us to learn about in terms of navigating the turbulence of the outside world. Because man, you're not going to get peace from the outside world. You're not going to get love in the way that you want to be loved, or nurturing. Like, there's no way how that.
And also, even if you do, can I tell you, it's not gratifying. It's
Talk
not.
to us about.
It doesn't, when you do get that external validation from the external world, whether that be an external person or whether that be, things that happen to you and like social media, it's not fulfilling in the way that we actually need spiritually as human beings. It's surface level. It's kind of like that immediate hit of dopamine that's like sort of at the front of your mind, but it's not hitting deep in here. It's not actually healing that wound and embracing you in the way that we actually need.
Absolutely. Anything you buy, anything you have, anything that you momentarily like, oh my God, it's the best thing ever. How long does that best thing ever last? Anything.
Yeah.
Person, objects, title.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, you spend the rest of your life only with one person, yourself.
Absolutely.
You only spend the rest of your days with yourself. So like, get happy with that person.
What are your thoughts on when, to be happy with that person, and you start that journey and you go, who is this person who, comes with all these complexities and these shadow sides? Because you know yourself, your brain has a million things, and they're normally quite, conditioned to be negative.
Of course.
And how do you start that journey of, when I see myself, I don't like what I see, or I don't like my thoughts, I don't like me at the moment. Negative, perceptions of self. How do you get past that?
Yeah. So it's always work. And I think sometimes that can be a really hard concept for someone, because there's no end point. There's no juncture at which you can stand at doneness. You're forever learning, you're forever growing, you're forever working on yourself, and it's not always easy. But I think a key for me has been kindness with myself. You have to give yourself the space to have days where you're not doing so great, and allow for that, and allow for that to be part of the growth as well. Rock bottom is actually a really solid place to jump off from.
You've got no other alternative but up.
Yes, yeah. And I think being kind and empathetic and patient with yourself, and like I was talking before about looking at things like relationships, sometimes stepping externally from yourself and looking at yourself from another perspective, almost viewing yourself as someone you do care about, and someone you do have love for, and someone you do have empathy for. Be your own best friend. What would you say to someone that you deeply, deeply love and care about coming to you and saying those negative things about themselves? You wouldn't hop on that train and engage with those thoughts. You wouldn't go, oh yeah, well, you are actually really bad at that, or you are actually like...
You would never say that to
You'd
someone
never
you
say
love.
that to someone you love. You'd step in and go, hey, whoa.
Don't say
Hold
that to
on.
my lover.
Yeah, I know. This is someone I really care about here. Why are you saying that about them?
Exactly.
And I think it was really helpful for me in my mental health journey and my self-love journey to view those negative thoughts as separate entities from myself. That is an external being, I suppose, from myself that is saying that to me.
Yes.
And yeah, it's okay to disagree with your internal mind.
Absolutely. It goes back to the description of emotions versus feelings. Our emotions can be conditioned for a long time. Like, I remember even for the longest time, I thought my body, my legs specifically, were so large. Are they large? Probably not. But like my perception. So every time my perception in the mirror would go to my legs. And then as I grew up, for whatever reason, there was a shift. I can't specifically name why, but there was just a different dialogue rehearsal. I was like, hold on, but my legs are powerful. Because I've always been a runner, so that's why I had larger muscly legs. And instead of seeing them as larger legs, I'm like, they're strong legs. They're muscular legs. They're like, I can run, 10Ks with these beautiful, and it's so cool that I get to run and see all this, and I feel, alive. And these give me that feeling. So then it's like changing. First of all, just ask yourself, is this an emotion, conditioning? Because society says you should have skinny legs or whatever, and exactly where it comes from, that's just an example, right? But then go into, what's the truth? What's the truth? My legs are strong. I'm, beautiful. And I feel like there's so many cool things that we can, learn from the truth. So many cool things about what used to be a perception of wrong, and actually go, hey, we talked about, we haven't talked about colorism yet, have we? No, but like in my Indian culture, even like being a bit more darker is like you're labeled as poorer, or you're labeled as someone that used to work outside settings, so the conditioning of that has become like association with your, like, how worthy you are.
Right.
So even in that dialogue with self, from my, colorism spectrum, from my conditioning, I was like, what the heck? Then I look at my color, and like when I moved to, say, New Zealand to Australia, and I'm around so many beautiful people of different colors, and they look at my color and they say, oh, you have such nice tan skin, like, and then again, that dialogue just changed. So it's like starting with the dialogue. What is your dialogue, and what is the truth instead of the conditioning?
And I think also the pathway that I took is just starting somewhere. It can be so small. It can be quite overwhelming and intimidating to think that, one day I really don't love myself, or even starting from a place that I kind of hate myself. To think, tomorrow I have to love the entirety of me. That's a big job. So I remember I actually started out with, I liked my fingers and I liked my ankles. That's where I started. But then you just grow it.
Absolutely.
You just grow it, and slowly but surely, like your ankles, like, actually, the whole leg actually is quite good. Yeah.
I love this one thing. I'll drop some advice from my mama. And she said to me, this was the background to the story, really quick. I had to do like a cultural dance at a very Western school. I was the only minority brown person, and I had to do this like epic, I'm not even going to explain, but it was a very traditional dance, and I was like, oh mom, everyone's gonna look at me, everyone's gonna be like, oh my god, what is she doing? And everyone's just gonna look at me, and I was just like, I don't know how to be up there in front of this assembly of school kids. It's pretty traumatic.
School kids are also like a collection of the worst people.
They're this absolute minority. But her turnaround moment and her response was, Neha, no one is really concerned with you as much as they are concerned with themselves.
Yeah, if you think about how much you think about yourself, no one else is thinking about you that much. I'm sorry, that probably sounds a little bit bad, but everyone's thinking about themselves just as much as you're thinking about yourself. So
absolutely.
If you think about the regularity at which you think about yourself,
So I guess in summary, what we're trying to bring to the table today, bring to some kind of consciousness, is don't compare, because everybody is flawed. No matter what Instagram filter is on, everybody's flawed. And what depiction of someone's life, everyone has shit going on. Don't compete, because actually that's aspiration, and when you compete, it means that you need to snatch and pull and get to that mountaintop you're talking about. But there's so many mountaintops. How many mountains do we have in the world?
Exactly.
It's not just one.
Yeah.
And don't don't be negative. Like, the connotation of language is really directly going to bring about the reality in your life, right? What the words we speak to ourselves is how we see ourselves.
Yeah.
How we see the world.
Yeah, and even, you know, fake it till you make it. You can tell yourself you love yourself even when you don't really believe it, but if you do it enough, like, your brain is listening to you.
Absolutely. Even another, like, simple tool, just smile.
Yeah.
Fake it until you make it.
Just smile. And
Yeah.
like, even the neurons that associated with the facial muscles of smiling send a signal to your brain saying, I'm actually happy.
Yeah.
So even if you're really sad, process those feelings, but when you are ready to be happy, just smile, just walk around with a smile, and it just turns.
And I think at the end of the day as well, the most important person to approve of you is yourself. It doesn't matter who anybody else, whatever anybody else is thinking about you, really. You need to approve of yourself.
Absolutely.
Because you spend the rest of your life by yourself.
Absolutely.
Or with yourself.
And that's the most important relationship of all.
Of course. Yeah.
Special. Love you.
Love.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for our beautiful interaction with Sian today. She will be back.
I will.
She's got so much wisdom.
I'll be back.
We should totally do astrology next.
Yes.
Yep. Oh my god.
We absolutely should.
This is gonna see you soon. Bye.